I'm a great believer that if you find talented people, and talented people do get found, absolutely, they should to try and shift musically to accommodate some kind of trend or fashion is a mistake. They should stick with what they're doing. If it's not working, it's probably not going to work if they suddenly try. If supposing they were a heavy metal band, this is a really daft example, and heavy metal wasn't doing too well, so they said, we'll be a disco act. It's probably not going to work for them. So they're better off sticking with what they're passionate about. And sometimes you are ahead of the audience, definitely. A lot of popular music is ahead of it, and the audience sort of catches up. So I would, when I was looking for artists or working with artists, the thing to me that was most important was this kind of, it's almost a pig-headedness. They were just going to keep barreling on whatever happened. And we did some shows as Dire Straits early on with the Police, I remember. And I can absolutely remember a gig we did at the Pinkpop Festival in Holland in about 1978, 9, something like that. And the Straits were starting to become big, and the Police were starting to become big. And the Straits had slightly the edge, and we were sort of headlining it. And I remember the Police didn't go down very well. And Sting yelled at the audience, "Don't worry, you'll catch up eventually." Which was Sting being Sting, you know. I've got big testicles, so I will say that. But he was right, and the audience, of course, did catch up to them. And it wasn't very long, in fact. But I would absolutely, I always took a view that you should be looking at a long career. I wasn't the kind of manager who handled pop acts who had hit singles and disappeared. And I've got nothing wrong with that at all. But I always looked at it, is this act likely to be able to produce 8 albums, 10 albums over a period of time? Will they keep progressing? Will they take musical risks? I'm a great believer in risk-taking. And sometimes it goes wrong. Sometimes you fall flat on your face. But it's better to have done it than not to have done it and sit around moaning because you didn't do it. I was at the Polestar conference in Los Angeles a few years ago, and Perry Farrell was doing a keynote speech, and he made a reference to, he said, "I don't think of making an album anymore." He said, "I think of recording a song." And even though that's a very simple concept, it hit me like a complete, like it was whacked round the head with a tennis bat, because I, of course, come from an era, I'm brainwashed into the idea of the album. And everybody of my, even right up to now, people think about making albums. But I think that the consumer has moved on from that. They don't think about consuming albums as such. I mean, you talk about the live thing, but I don't really see that as being any different to how it's always been. You're playing live. One of the reasons, I mean, this never ever seems to get mentioned. I always thought that musicians played live because that was the whole point of being a musician, to play music to an audience. So when acts would come to me and say, "We don't want to tour," I'd say, "Well, the door's over there." That's what it's about. It's about playing to an audience and getting the interaction with an audience and getting the energy from an audience. That's the drug. And it is a drug. And people who play live are addicted to playing live. People who can do it well and who can get an audience to respond. And it's fantastically exciting. When you see some punter down the front waving an artificial leg, you've fucking cracked it. So I think that you still have to do, if I was taking on an act, I would do everything that I could possibly think of to to get them established and to get their name out and to brand them, if you want. And if that meant them riding naked on a white horse down the main street of London, go for it. Go for it. Whatever it takes. Whew, a lot of that one. Irving Azoff. Do you know who Irving Azoff is? He's the most powerful person in music worldwide. He runs a huge management company in America with over 200 acts. He's a big participant in Live Nation and Ticketmaster. Excuse me. And he once said to me, "Don't you just love being in show business?" Which was an odd thing for somebody who was in the rock business to kind of say. But in fact, he's right. The answer to your question is that we are in show business. We're in the entertainment business. And it doesn't matter whether you're Megadeth or Lady Gaga, you're trying to entertain your audience. And pop music has always been about image. If you go back to Elvis Presley, he was image personified. Great-looking guy, wore incredibly sort of out-there clothes for the time, moved in a particular way, spoke in a particular way, and all the rest of it. And that's been the same ever since. And I think the image is definitely important. In some musical forms, it's more important than others. So, for instance, I have in mind Madonna and what I'm going to loosely call dance music. She doesn't do all dance music. But Madonna and her look and her ever-changing look and her ever kind of reinvention of herself has been an enormous part of her career because her singing voice is actually not that great. Sorry, Madge, but she's not going to do opera anytime soon. But she's taken the elements she's got, and one of her skills is absolutely recognizing the skills she's got, and she's kind of married them together, and she's selling a package, definitely. And I don't think Madonna's music would have been anything like as successful without the rest of the package. On the other hand, you might find a very, I'll give you an example which is kind of very current, Rammstein, whatever you call them. Rammstein, all right. Now they're on their way to being very, very, very big, but their image is not based on the individuals in the band. Nobody knows what they look like. It's based on a kind of a theatrical kind of position, but nobody knows what the guys in is it Korn? It's one of those bands. I can't remember which one. Guys who wear masks. Slipknot, sorry, yeah. But that's an image in itself, and it's appealing to a crowd. I mean, I don't know whether a heavy metal band right now could wear white clothes. That everybody wears black clothes. It seems to be part of the genre. It's obvious when you look at shows like X Factor and the current swathe of talent shows that all the people who go on those have an idea in their head of what they are supposed to present, which is often very kind of glittery and is television friendly. That's what it is. It's part of TV pop. So you don't see, I know that they deal in singers, not bands, but you don't see sort of many sort of heavy metal singers lurching to the front wearing torn black leather and sort of vomit, appearing at the microphone in front of my dear pal Simon Cowell. You know, that's not. So yeah, you do. It is important. It's probably become more important simply because there's more visual outlets. You know, when I started out, we had 4 television channels in Britain, and now, like everywhere else, we've got hundreds. And on the 4 television channels, we probably only had 3 music shows. So you were sort of funneled into that. I don't listen to contemporary music, so I don't have a view on it. But then I'm probably an exception because I'm not looking I didn't get into this to be a factory. I found something that totally inspired me. If other people didn't like them, didn't matter. They inspired me. Did I think they would be commercially successful? No. Did I think they would sell 134 million albums? Of course not. I don't sit listening to the radio or records as an academic exercise to figure out whether or not there's some trend coming through that maybe I should be sniffing after. And maybe that's one of the consequences of being financially in a position where I have total choice, really. That's what money buys you. It'll get you a microwave and a pair of nice shoes, but basically it'll buy you choice. And the choice can be not to do something. And I never saw music as a competition. I never bothered who was on the charts or you know, I would say to the guys, you're number one in Patagonia. And they'd all go, they didn't think that way either. Maybe that's changed now. Maybe people are far more aware of it being some kind of competitive race. But for me, I came into popular music because for me it was romantic. There was a romance to it. I loved music. I loved being around musicians. I loved staying up late at night and smoking cigarettes made out of lawn cuttings. I loved the whole girls thing I was talking about earlier. And I loved the fact it was fun and it was an adventure. And I'd also learned the skill of how to live on a tin of baked beans a week. That's a really important skill. If you can live on sausages and chips, then you have instant leverage because you don't need any money. If you don't need any money, you can say, and I'm being serious, you can say yes, no, to whatever. Maybe that's a generational thing. I mean, I'm not really in the game anymore, and I'm not looking to, you know, check out, listen to tapes or go to clubs and so on. I did that. That's for you folks to do. So I'm not really, you're almost asking the wrong person because I don't, I'm not approaching it from the point of view of a sort of academic or financial exercise. If I hear something by chance that I like, then I'll check it out, see what it is. And that might be something that's not even current. Might be some old. I was flickering around on YouTube the other day and came up with some old blues player who I'd never heard of. It was fantastic. I listen to music for pleasure now, thankfully. One of the problems with, I think, when you're doing the management thing, certainly at the level I was doing it at, is that you end up in a sort of goldfish bowl, and you're just not aware of what's going on outside of the bowl. The only time I would ever see bands play back then was if we were doing a festival and there were other bands on, or if we were doing some dodgy TV in Holland, and then it would invariably be pop acts, which was fine. But I mean, I don't think anybody out there today, or any of you who've been involved in this, have any idea of how much work is involved when you get going, when the roller coaster starts. And you can easily work 16-hour day, easy. And the one thing you don't want to do when you get home is stick on Dark Side of the Moon